Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown and AEW Rampage review. Smackdown tonight was from the MVP Arena in Albany, here in New York, while Rampage was taped from the Petersen Events Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Smackdown tonight, as always with Smackdown, terrible show, god-awful, a waste of 2 hours, absolutely abysmal. This show fucking sucks. This show continues to get worse and worse every single week. And Monday Night Raw on Monday, it was an awful show, but it was, in my opinion, better than the show that we got tonight for SmackDown. Even though Raw was fucking awful on Monday, it was still better than what we saw for the 2 hours on this show tonight. What we got on SmackDown tonight? We had Xavier Woods versus Pete Dunn, aka Butch. We have Walter, aka Gunther, versus a local jobber. Riddle ended up taking on J Uso. We had Madcap versus Angel Garza. And the main event, it was Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre in a Lumberjack match. And pretty much that was SmackDown tonight. Absolutely god-awful show. But before I get into the review, if you guys haven't checked out my previous video, did a review of Wednesday's Dynamite. So if you guys haven't checked out my Dynamite review, definitely give it a watch. So I thought Dynamite from this week was a good show. Very enjoyable show. But let's jump right into the SmackDown review of this god-awful show. SmackDown opened up tonight with the contract sign-in between Ronda Rousey and Charlotte for their match at WrestleMania Backlash, which is an I Quit match, and the SmackDown Women's Championship will be on the line. So Adam Pearce was in the ring. He had a table in there, typical WWE contract sign-ins, table in the ring, chairs. So Adam Pearce welcomed us to SmackDown, and he then introduced who he calls one of the most dominant women in sports entertainment. And he ended up saying that this woman is the game changer. And he ended up introducing Charlotte Flair. So Adam Pearce ended up calling Charlotte the most dominant woman in sports entertainment. And she is a game changer. Really? God. How awful is that? Charlotte's not a game changer. So then out came Charlotte, all dressed in a green outfit. And she ended up getting into the ring. And Adam Pearce ended up introducing Ronda Rousey next. So Ronda Rousey came out. Adam Pearce ended up telling them that we need 2 signatures to make this match official. No duh. So the contract was nowhere to be seen. The contract wasn't even out there. Adam Pearce was looking around, and then out came Drew Gulak. Drew Gulak came out with the contract, and Adam Pearce ended up apologizing, and Drew Gulak is now Adam Pearce's new assistant. Why? Does Adam Pearce need an assistant? So Drew Gulak ended up coming into the ring, and Gulak ended up telling Adam Pearce that he's super pumped for this opportunity, and he's taking it very serious. So Gulak ended up telling all of us to look to the screen for a special PowerPoint presentation for the rules of the I Quit match. I think everybody knows the rules of an I Quit match. It's not the first time fans have seen an I Quit match. So we did not see a PowerPoint presentation of the rules for the I Quit match. WWE thinks the fans are stupid, thinking that we have never seen an I Quit match before. So Charlotte ended up telling Gulak to shut up before she makes him quit the job before he gets started. Ronda Rousey had some words of support for Drew Gulak. Charlotte was taunting Ronda for losing at WrestleMania as the fans were chanting to Charlotte, "You tapped out." And then Charlotte was like, "Oh, I was just adjusting my bra." So Charlotte ended up standing up at the table. She kept going on about the different ways she can make Ronda Rousey say, "I quit." Charlotte then ended up raising the SmackDown Women's Championship. She kept saying that she always finds a way to win, like she did at WrestleMania. She then sat back down. She signed the contract. And Ronda was just smirking at Charlotte. So fans were chanting for Ronda, and Charlotte ended up interrupting again. And Charlotte was like, "Oh, I won at WrestleMania." I'm like, who cares? Ronda ended up saying that there will be no referee to save Charlotte this time. And this time, Charlotte will have to say to Ronda that Ronda is better than her. So Charlotte then flipped over the table. She ended up grabbing a kendo stick that was hidden underneath the table. And Charlotte ended up attacking Ronda with the kendo stick. Ronda ended up catching the kendo stick, ended up taking Charlotte down. She started unloading with some kendo stick shots to Charlotte. Drew Gulak ended up grabbing the stick, and Gulak was preparing the contract. And Ronda ended up grabbing Drew Gulak, and she ended up dropping Gulak with the Piper's Pit. Ronda then ended up standing over Drew Gulak, and she was clutching his arm, and Gulak ended up giving her a pen, and she had the contract in her other hand. So Ronda then took the pen. She ended up dropping the armbar on Drew Gulak. She tightened the armbar on Gulak while she ended up signing the contract to make the match official at WrestleMania Backlash. And pretty much that was basically that. But overall, this was cringe. This whole segment was cringe and awful. I don't care for this match at WrestleMania Backlash. I really don't. This was just fucking cringe and awful. And then we had the first match of the night. It was Xavier Woods versus Pete Dunn, aka Butch. So the New Day ended up coming out. Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. They ended up coming to the ring, and then SmackDown went to commercial. Then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, out came Pete Dunne, aka Butch, with Sheamus and Ridge Holland. And the match ended up starting. Xavier Woods ended up ducking Pete Dunne, and he rolled him up. Xavier Woods did another counter and a quick roll-up on Pete Dunne, to which Pete Dunne ended up kicking out. Woods ended up chopping Pete Dunne, delivered some more chops against the ropes. Woods ended up ducking right hands and started unloading on Pete Dunne as the fans ended up cheering him on. So Xavier Woods ended up leveling Pete Dunne with a clothesline. He ended up going for the cover. Pete Dunne kicked out at 2. Pete Dunne ended up turning things around, and he ended up mounting Xavier Woods with some right hands. He started working on Xavier Woods' arm, and Pete Dunne ended up bending Xavier Woods' elbow back. He ended up stomping on it. Pete Dunne ended up countering Xavier Woods' attempt at a comeback, and he ended up grabbing Xavier Woods' face, sending him face first into the turnbuckles. So Pete Dunne ended up charging at Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods ended up sending him over the top rope out to the floor. He ended up drop kicking Pete Dunne through the ropes, sending him over the commentary table. So Sheamus and Ridge Holland were yelling at Xavier Woods on the outside. Kofi ended up coming over to stand with Xavier Woods, facing off with Sheamus and Ridge Holland. And then Pete Dunne ended up leaping off the apron. He jumped over both Sheamus and Ridge Holland and took down Xavier Woods on the floor. And as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Pete Dunne ended up having Xavier Woods tied up in a submission. And Pete Dunne ended up delivering a shot to Xavier Woods' ribs. And Xavier Woods ended up fighting back with some punches and chops to Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne ended up trying to keep up, but Xavier Woods started unloading on Pete Dunne against the ropes. Xavier Woods ended up leveling Pete Dunne with a forearm, and he ended up sweeping the legs of Pete Dunne, and then he ended up dropping a senton. So at the end of the match, we had Xavier Woods end up dropping Pete Dunne with a DDT, and he rolled him up with the backwoods, and there you go. Xavier Woods ended up winning the match. Post-match, Pete Dunne ended up seething as Sheamus and Ridge Holland ended up trying to calm him down. Dunne ended up exiting the ring. He ended up going over the barricade into the crowd. He grabbed a crew member and ragdolled him, tossed him over the barricade. Sheamus and Ridge Holland ended up looking on as Dunne ended up continuing roaming through the crowd. And he walked to the back, and that was basically that. So Pete Dunne looks like he wants to get away from Ridge Holland and Sheamus, and he is now 0-2. He has 0 wins, 2 losses after coming up on the main roster here. That smells dead on arrival. Watch he be on the next set of releases when WWE decides to announce those. Watch that happen. He deserves so much better. Pete Dunne deserves so much better than what they're doing with him on the main roster. But overall, match was okay. And then we saw Aaliyah. Aaliyah was backstage with Ricochet, the Intercontinental Champion. Aaliyah hasn't even been on TV in a while. So she was talking about how impressive Ricochet has been. Aaliyah ended up asking Ricochet what's next for him. Ricochet ended up telling Aaliyah that this is just the beginning and that it's an honor to be the Intercontinental Champion. Ricochet ended up talking about the greats that have held the Intercontinental Championship. And his goal is to be one of those all-time greats who have been Intercontinental Champion. So then, Jinder Mahal and Shanky end up coming up to Ricochet. Jinder ended up saying that last week's match for the Intercontinental Championship was a fluke. I didn't even watch SmackDown last week, so thank God I did not even see that match. So Jinder Mahal ended up questioning Ricochet's confidence as he was talking some trash to Ricochet. So Ricochet ended up saying that he will defend the Intercontinental Championship anytime, any place. So Shanky ended up stepping up, and he ended up telling Ricochet that he wants to become the Intercontinental Champion. Ricochet then accepted the challenge, and he walked off. And Jinder was there. He was looking confused. He was maybe upset with Shanky for stepping up for him getting a shot at the Intercontinental Championship. to which Jinder possibly wants a rematch with Ricochet for the title. Who cares? Who fucking cares? And then we had Walter, aka Gunther, versus a local jobber, Teddy Goodz. And his last name is not spelled Goodz. His last name is spelled Goodz. But this was a squash match here. We had Ludwig Kaiser, aka Marcel Barthel, which I still don't get why they had to change his name. You know, WWE has this thing here where Vince is loving changing superstars' names. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So he went from Marcel Barthel to changing his name to Ludwig Kaiser. Sounds like you go into a deli. His name sounds like you go into a deli and then you ask for a roll and you say to the guy, "Oh, can I get this on a Ludwig Kaiser roll?" That's what it sounds like with his name being Kaiser, Ludwig Kaiser. Yeah, let me get a Kaiser roll. Let me get a Ludwig Kaiser roll. So Ludwig Kaiser, Marcel Barthel was out on the stage. He was standing under a spotlight. He ended up giving an introduction to Walter, aka Gunther. He was calling him the diabolical athlete who will stop at nothing to uphold the integrity and honor of this great sport, the ring general. So out came Walter, aka Gunther, and they ended up coming down to the ring. And basically, the match was just Walter, Gunther, end up throwing around Teddy Goodz, slamming him by his arm. And there was a point where Goodz ended up fighting back, but Walter, Gunther ended up swatting away at Goodz with a dropkick attempt. He leveled Goodz with a big boot. And in the end, Walter, Gunther ended up dropping Goodz with a powerbomb. And that was that. Overall, squash match. And already Walter, Gunther on the main roster, he has now just felt like everyone else. He feels like everyone else on the main roster. And the crowd, when he came out, zero reaction. And there was no mention of him coming up to the main roster. You would be like, oh, WWE would put out vignettes for him, saying that, oh, he's coming soon. But we got all these months of Veer Mahan coming soon to Monday Night Raw, and no vignettes for Gunther, Walter, making his main roster debut. So WWE put all their vignettes into Veer Mahan and all those long months that they have promoted him, and nothing for Walter, aka Gunther, coming up to the main roster. We should have had that. But yet, he's on the main roster, comes out to zero reactions from the crowd. So then we saw Riddle and Orton backstage. RK Bro was on Smackdown tonight, and they were just there to generate interest, maybe for Raw and to get up the Raw ratings. So Riddle ended up recalling his RKO to Jimmy last week. He ended up saying that he might do something even sicker to Jey tonight. And Riddle ended up saying that he loves coming back to SmackDown to see all his friends. Drew McIntyre ended up walking up, and Riddle ended up greeting McIntyre. McIntyre and Orton ended up staring each other down because of their history in the past, the issues that they had in the past. So Riddle ended up calming things down. He ended up saying that he signed RK Bro up to be Lumberjacks in the Lumberjack match with Sami Zayn and him and Drew McIntyre. McIntyre ended up saying that he saw what RK Bro did last week, and anyone who stands up to the bloodline is good in his book. Owen ended up saying that he and McIntyre are good. So McIntyre walked away, and RK Bro ended up walking off. And Sami Zayn was creeping around. And Sami Zayn was eavesdropping in the background. So he was hiding there, listening to what McIntyre and Riddle and Owen had to say. So that was that. And then we had Riddle versus Jey Uso. So we had Riddle and Randy Orton end up coming out first. And then SmackDown went to commercial. And then when SmackDown came back, we had a backstage promo from Xia Li. Xia Li ended up saying that she was the protector, but she sees no one worthy of her protection. So she ended up saying that she must now protect herself. So that was what Xia Li had to say. Xia Li hasn't even been on TV in months, and she comes back and she's already a heel just by this promo. I'm like, okay. Just randomly comes back on TV. Xia Li, WWE just randomly puts her back on TV, and all of a sudden she's a heel. So then out came the Usos, Jimmy and Jay. And Michael Cole in commentary, he ended up promoting the unification match at WrestleMania Backlash. And Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns were watching backstage in Roman's locker room suite. And the match was decent, in my opinion. Match started off with Riddle and Jay end up sizing each other up. Riddle got some offense on Jay. Jay ended up coming back, and he ended up dropping Riddle. They started trading holds. Jay delivered a right hand to Riddle and some punches to keep him down. Riddle ended up dodging a move by Jay, ended up dropping him with a kick to the mouth. Riddle came back, delivered a gut wrench suplex on Jay. So Riddle then delivered a forearm to Jay's mouth, and the fans were chanting for Riddle. Jay ended up dropping him with a forearm and started working on Riddle around the ring with strikes, and he delivered some chops to Riddle's chest against the ropes. Riddle ended up kicking Jay off the ropes, ended up kicking him to send him out to the floor to take a breather. Riddle ended up running the ropes, and he delivered a suicide dive, and Jay ended up suckering Riddle in, met him at the ropes, and delivered a right hand. Jay ended up sending Riddle into the ring steps, and he kept control out on the floor at ringside. He ended up slamming Riddle on top of the commentary table, just like Orton ends up doing. So Jay was taunting Riddle as SmackDown went to commercial. Then as SmackDown came back from commercial, Jay had Riddle grounded in the middle of the ring. And we had Riddle end up fighting back, and both Riddle and Jay started trading strikes. Riddle ended up dropping Jay and nailed a overhead kick. Riddle then delivered a running forearm in the corner and laid Jay out with a clothesline. Riddle ended up going for the floating bro, but he ended up missing. So it was back and forth between Riddle and Jay. Riddle ended up leveling Jay with a final flash knee strike, and he ended up going up to the top. He does connect with the floating bro on Jay, and he ended up going for the cover, and Jay ended up kicking out. So we had later on, Jay ended up blocking the RKO by Riddle. He ended up lifting Riddle, dropped him into a neck breaker, and he went for the cover, to which Riddle kicked out too. So at the end of the match, Jey Uso ended up going for the Uso splash from the top. Riddle ended up getting his knees up, and then he turned that over into the pin. And there you go. Riddle ended up winning the match. Post-match, RK Bro was celebrating both Orton and Riddle. And Reigns was pissed off as he was watching from backstage. And pretty much that was that. But overall, the match was okay, in my opinion. And then we had the Women's Tag Team Champions, Sasha Banks and Naomi, end up coming out. And they retained the Women's Tag Team titles on Raw against Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, to which Rhea Ripley ended up turning heel on Liv Morgan after the match. So, as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Kayla Braxton was in the ring with Sasha and Naomi. And Kayla Braxton ended up bringing up how they have been unstoppable since winning the titles at WrestleMania. So Naomi ended up saying that they are just getting started. The fans were chanting, "You deserve it," to them. Sasha and Naomi end up going on about being dominant and how it doesn't matter who comes for the titles next. And then out came Natalya and Shayna Baszler. Natalya ended up saying that they must have forgotten about the team they did not beat to win the titles. So Shayna Baszler ended up saying that they were going to stretch and snap every bone in their bodies, in Sasha and Naomi's bodies, and then take the titles from them. Shayna Baszler started talking some more trash to Sasha and Naomi. Baszler ended up shoving Sasha down to the mat. Sasha ended up coming back to her feet, and Naomi ended up holding her back. Naomi ended up daring Shayna Baszler and Natalya to try to come and take the titles. And Sasha and Naomi ended up raising the titles in the air as them stared down Natalya and Shayna Baszler. And that was how the segment ended. But overall, this was awful. This was terrible. Who will want to see them face Natalya and Shayna Baszler for the titles? Sounds awfully boring. And then we saw Madcap Moss. Moss was warming up backstage, and Corbin ended up appearing. Corbin ended up congratulating Moss on his win last week over Humberto, saying all that mentoring must have paid off. Corbin ended up thinking that it's time to be the bigger man, and that he's willing to forgive Moss. He ended up saying that it is time, and Moss made his point. But he will be the bigger man, and forgive him. Moss ended up admitting that they shared some good laughs. Every joke that Moss told was absolutely fucking cringe and terrible. God awful. It was mute the TV worthy. Or bathroom break worthy. Moss ended up bringing up possibly going back as Corbin's sidekick, but says there's a better chance of Corbin growing a full head of hair. So Corbin ended up walking off as Moss was laughing, and that was that. And then we had Madcap Moss versus Angel Garza. And of course, Moss came out to his awful entrance with the joke. Cringe. So Moss made his way out, and then SmackDown went to commercial. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, we got a vignette for Raquel Rodriguez. And this vignette was just how she dominated in NXT, and as she will be on SmackDown next week. So there you go. Raquel Rodriguez is going to be on SmackDown next week. Her name was formerly known as Raquel Gonzalez down in NXT. She's another one that, for some reason, got her name changed, only her last name changed. You know, typical WWE with their random name changes for superstars. These random name changes need to stop. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Why did you have to change Pete Dunne's name to Butch as soon as he came up to the main roster? Why change Walter's name to Gunther? And two other superstars, two women superstars down in NXT got their name changed. Casey Canizaro and Kaylee Ray. Listen to this. NXT 2.0 stars Kaylee Ray and Casey Canizaro reportedly given name changes. Why? According to PW Insider, Casey Canizaro will now be known as Katana Chance. And Kaylee Ray will go by Alba Fry. Why did they need to have their names changes? Why? Kaylee Ray's name is easy to remember. When she comes out now as Alba Fry, nobody's going to know who she is. Even Casey Canizaro, Katana Chance. Who's going to know that name? Everybody knew the names of Casey Canizaro and Kaylee Ray down in NXT. When they come out to the new names, they're going to be like, what kind of names are these? Who are these? Who are these two women? That's how I feel like it's going to be. They don't need the name change. They don't. Oh, and Marcel Barthel. Can't forget about him being called Ludwig Kaiser. A Ludwig Kaiser role. These random name changes need to stop. So we went back to the ring. Moss was in there. He has Andre the Giant Battle Royal trophy standing by the commentary table. And out came Los Lotharios, Angel, Garza, and Humberto Carrillo. And of course, we got the kiss cam, as always. Match ended up starting. Both Moss and Angel end up going at it. Back and forth between them. Moss ended up leveling Angel. Backdropped him over the top rope onto Humberto. Moss ended up toiling the both of them. Humberto ended up grabbing Moss's leg from the floor, and that allowed Angel to drop kick Moss in the head. Moss ended up coming back, ended up catching a crossbody, and delivered a fallaway slam to Angel. At the end of the match, we had Moss getting fired up. He was yelling out at the crowd. He ended up dropping Angel with a punchline, and that was that. Moss ended up winning the match. Post-match, Moss was celebrating in the ring, and Corbin ended up attacking Moss from behind. Corbin ended up beating Moss down, started stomping away at Moss in the corner. Then Corbin ended up grabbing Moss, dropped him with the end of days. Corbin got out of the ring, and he approached the Andre the Giant Battle Royal trophy. So Corbin ended up hoisting up the trophy onto his shoulder, and he walked away with it. So stealing the trophy. And pretty much that was basically that. But overall, this was a quick match with Moss and Angel. Very quick match. So then we saw the Bloodline. The Bloodline was backstage, and the Usos were disappointed with Jey losing to Riddle. Jey ended up saying to them that it won't ever happen again. So Roman Reigns was looking disappointed because of Jey losing the match to Riddle. So Paul Heyman ended up walking up, and he ended up saying that they have a guest. And the guest was Sami Zayn. So Sami Zayn came in. He ended up saying that it's good to see Roman, because Sami Zayn was creeping around backstage. He ended up approaching Reigns' locker room. He was hesitating to knock on the door. So Sami ended up starting off by acknowledging Reigns and complimenting him on how good his work has been as of late. Sami ended up going on about how he's the locker room leader, as Reigns has his own. And he's heard things and seen things. And they saw McIntyre getting chummy with RK Bro. And now they're going to be Lumberjacks in his match tonight with McIntyre. Sami is saying that he is not a rat or a snitch, but they said some disrespectful things about Reigns and his family. So Sami ended up going on. He ended up saying that his reputation has taken hit after hit. And now people think he's afraid of McIntyre. He ended up saying that he needs to beat McIntyre to get back the respect he's owed. So he was thinking maybe he could get some kind of help. So Sami ended up saying that he would be more than helpful in return if Reigns can help him out. So Sami ended up saying that he could be a very valuable ally. So Sami was on his knees. He was pleading with Reigns, begging him for help. And Sami ended up saying that he needs Reigns to acknowledge him because Sami is acknowledging him, is acknowledging Reigns. So Reigns was just looking at Sami. Sami ended up getting up. He sarcastically says, "That was a great talk." So he ended up walking off. Reigns ended up telling the Usos that we have people on his show talking trash about him. So Reigns was like, go take his name out of their mouths. So that was basically that. But this was, decent segment here. Reigns is the only thing good about SmackDown. And then Michael Cole ended up sending us to Chapter 3 of Lacey Evans' story. Last week was Chapter 2 of Lacey Evans' story that she ended up telling, which I didn't see it. So Lacey Evans ended up doing this promo. She ended up saying that growing up, if they weren't living in tents, it was trailers with holes in the floor or houses with mold. She ended up talking more about her dad issues and how she grew up without her mom for the most important years of her life. She ended up saying that she didn't have mommy to lean on, so she was left crying into a pile of dirty clothes. Lacey Evans ended up saying that she does her own makeup and stuff now, and had to teach herself what beauty was. Evans ended up going on about competing in amateur wrestling when she was younger, and without the support at home, it was up to her to succeed. Evans ended up recalling walking home 2 miles in the rain from work, school, and wrestling, only to find out her high father passed out on the couch with a cigarette in his mouth. Lacey Evans ended up saying that she learned how unbreakable she was and how sorry she felt for people who haven't been put in dangerous situations to find themselves. So Lacey Evans ended up repeating what she said, from the first week and last week about how what she's been going through in her life and has made her a motivated, ready for anything, confident mother, wife, sister, daughter, Marine, U.S. Marine, and a WWE superstar. And she ended up saying how she's no better than the other superstars, but they're damn sure no better than her. So that was what Lacey Evans had to say. We're getting this whole, backstory of Lacey Evans and, how she ended up growing up. So where was all this when she made her way to the main roster? How can they do that, as she came up to the main roster, but they wait till now to do this? But that's WWE for you. Main event. Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre Lumberjack match. This is the third match that Sami Zayn and McIntyre are having. Last week they had a rematch to which I heard Sami Zayn end up running off again like a pussy. The first match he did the same thing. Last week, same thing. It's the same shit. So they're just making Sami Zayn into a coward, running away. So all the Lumberjacks end up coming out. We saw the Viking Raiders, Nakamura, Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, Riddle and Orton, Sheamus, Ridge Holland, Mansoor, Jinder Mahal, and Shanky. They were all the Lumberjacks down there. And then SmackDown came back from the commercial. They announced 2 matches that we're going to see next week on SmackDown. We're going to be seeing Shanky versus Ricochet, and then a Beat the Clock challenge with Ronda and Charlotte. Yeah, a Beat the Clock snooze challenge. So those are the 2 things that we're going to see on SmackDown next week. Sounds rather interesting. Yeah. Yeah, right. So we had Drew McIntyre in there. Drew McIntyre ended up having his sword, Angela, of course. So the match ended up starting. We had the Usos end up coming out. Both Jimmy and Jay, they end up walking down to ringside to watch the match. Sami Zayn was excited to see Jimmy and Jay. Sami ended up going right out to the floor to make peace with the Lumberjacks, and they end up pulling him back into the ring. McIntyre ended up going for Sami, but he ended up retreating out to the floor. Sami ended up trying to escape into the crowd, but the Lumberjacks end up bringing him back into the ring. McIntyre ended up grabbing Sami and launched him into the corner, delivered a chop to Sami's chest. And McIntyre ended up going into the opposite corner, delivered another chop to Sami. It was a big chop that echoed throughout the arena. So Sami ended up dodging a shot from McIntyre. He ended up sending McIntyre to the floor in front of Sheamus, Ridge Holland. Sheamus ended up getting a few shots in on McIntyre. They ended up sending him back in, both Sheamus and Ridge Holland. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Sami Zayn was in control of the match on McIntyre, but he was yelling at the Lumberjacks. Sami ended up kicking McIntyre out to Sheamus, and Sheamus ended up rolling McIntyre back into the ring. McIntyre ended up quickly dropping Sami with a Glasgow Kiss headbutt, to which McIntyre ended up launching Sami with an overhead throw from the corner. McIntyre delivered a neck breaker and a kip up. So Sami was stumbling around. McIntyre was going for the Claymore, but of course, Sami Zayn retreated out to the floor. RK Bro ended up going to roll Sami back into the ring, but the Usos ended up delivering super kicks to both Orton and Riddle. So the other Lumberjacks were brawling around ringside. McIntyre was stopping Sami from retreating into the crowd. McIntyre ended up rolling Sami back into the ring, but Sheamus, Shanky, and Jinder Mahal ended up attacking McIntyre from behind. They ended up rolling McIntyre back into the ring. But then we had them being attacked by the New Day. We had the heel Lumberjacks attacked by the New Day and Nakamura. McIntyre ended up getting up to his feet. He was looking around for Sami Zayn, and Sami Zayn was nowhere to be found. So instead, McIntyre ended up running the ring. He leaped out of the ring and took down the Lumberjacks at ringside. Sami Zayn ended up seeing what just happened, and he took the opportunity. He hopped over the barricade. He ran away again like a chicken shit through the crowd. So Adam Pearce ended up appearing on the stage. Adam Pearce ended up insulting Sami Zayn for running away from a Lumberjack match. So Adam Pearce ended up announcing that next week on SmackDown, we will see Sami Zayn and McIntyre in a steel cage. So McIntyre was pleased, and Jinder Mahal suddenly ended up attacking McIntyre from behind, started beating him down the corner. Sami Zayn was looking terrified in the crowd. Shank ended up joining Jinder Mahal, and McIntyre ended up fighting them both off with 2 Glasgow Kiss headbutts. And so McIntyre ended up pointing at Sami Zayn in the crowd, and he ended up dropping Jinder with a Claymore kick. McIntyre was looking back at Sami Zayn. He started smiling and taunting Sami. And pretty much that was basically how SmackDown went off the air. McIntyre ended up going to Pat McAfee. He yelled something into Pat McAfee's headset, saying that there will be no escape for Sami next week, as he plans to tear Sami Zayn apart. So McIntyre took his sword, stood on top of the commentary table, pointed up at Sami Zayn, and was yelling at him. And that was how SmackDown went off the air. But now we're getting a fourth match with Sami Zayn and Drew McIntyre. 4 matches already. And it's going to be in a steel cage next week. Man, SmackDown, absolutely terrible, as always, with the show tonight. This show fucking sucks. This show is absolutely fucking awful. To which Monday Night Raw, even though it's a terrible show, it's better than SmackDown. Never would I thought I would say that. And that's 3 hours. Raw is 3 hours. And it's, like I said, terrible show, but still better than SmackDown, which is 2 hours. And the show flies by with SmackDown. With Monday Night Raw, you're watching that for 3 hours, and you're looking at the time like, oh, is it almost 10 o'clock already? So we only have 59 minutes left of the show. God, this show sucks. Moving on to Rampage, which was a decent show tonight. We had a qualifying match in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament where Adam Cole ended up taking on Tomohiro Ishii from New Japan. Lance Archer versus Serpentico. Eddie Kingston versus Daniel Garcia. 1-on-1, to which on Dynamite, Eddie Kingston ended up saying in his promo that the Jericho Appreciation Society and Santana Ortiz would be banned from ringside during that match. So, Kingston just wanted Daniel Garcia 1-on-1. So we saw that tonight. And in the main event, the TBS Championship was on the line. Jade Cargill defended the title against Marina Shafir. But that was, Rampage. But decent show it was tonight. Rampage opened up with the qualifying match in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. Adam Cole versus Tomohiro Ishii from New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Orange Cassidy and Rocky Romero were out there. I guess they accompanied Tomohiro Ishii down to the ring. And this is the first time I've seen Ishii compete in the ring. I never watched, like a full New Japan Pro Wrestling show, at all. I've seen clips here and there. But Tomohiro Ishii, I thought he did decent here in the match with Adam Cole. And, it was a decent match here. Adam Cole ended up trying to do some shoulder tackles on Ishii, and it did nothing for him. It did nothing for Ishii. Ishii ended up doing shoulder tackles of his own to Adam Cole, to which Cole ended up rolling to the outside. Adam Cole ended up getting back into the ring, and he ended up backing Ishii into the corner. Ishii ended up stepping out of the corner and delivered a chop to Adam Cole, to which Cole ended up rolling to the outside again. Ishii ended up getting a couple of shots on Adam Cole on the floor, and he ended up chopping him. Ishii backed Cole against the ring post on the floor. Cole ended up ducking a clothesline from Ishii, and Ishii's arm ended up hitting the ring post. Cole ended up rolling Ishii back into the ring, started grounding him with some punches. He then ended up going for a headlock to ground Ishii. And Cole ended up hitting a reverse neckbreaker on Ishii. Ishii ended up trying to fight up from the ground with some punches, and Cole ended up fighting him off. Cole started slapping Ishii in the corner, and Ishii from that looked like he had enough of Adam Cole doing that, slapping him. So Ishii was absorbing all the strikes that Adam Cole was throwing at him. So Ishii ended up delivering a forearm to drop Adam Cole. Cole ended up reversing a whip and sent Ishii into the corner. Ishii immediately ended up charging out of the corner, but ran into a forearm by Adam Cole. Cole ended up trying to follow that up, but he ended up running right into a power slam by Ishii. Ishii then ended up hitting a suplex to Cole, and he went for the cover, to which Cole ended up kicking out too. Ishii was trying to go for another powerbomb, and Adam Cole ended up escaping out of that. So Rampage went to commercial. We got the picture-in-picture. And then as Rampage came back from the commercial, Ishii was powering up Cole for a superplex from the second rope. And Ishii ended up setting up Cole for a sliding lariat. Cole then ended up ducking that and ended up hitting a super kick to Ishii. So Cole ended up lowering his knee pad. He set up Ishii for the boom. And Ishii ended up ducking and hitting the sliding lariat. And he went for the cover, to which Cole ended up kicking out too. So Ishii ended up trying to lift up Cole. Cole ended up escaping and hit a Ushigoroshi to Ishii. And he ended up going for the cover, to which Ishii kicked out too. Cole then climbed to the second rope. Ishii ended up dodging the Panama Sunrise. Cole ended up hitting a super kick, and Ishii shrugged it off and took down Cole with a kick to the back of his head. So Jay White ended up running down. Jay White ended up running down to ringside. He pushed Rocky Romero into the ring steps, and that led to Adam Cole hitting a low blow on Ishii, and Cole was able to hit the boom on Ishii, and he ended up going for the cover. So there you go. Adam Cole ended up winning the match, and Adam Cole is moving forward in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. Overall, this was a decent match between Cole and Ishii. The first time I've seen Ishii in the ring here, and he was decent. But decent match it was. And then we saw security preventing Jericho and the rest of the Jericho Appreciation Society from entering the arena. Of course, they are banned from the arena because Kingston on Dynamite said, I don't want all the Jericho Appreciation Society there for his match with Daniel Garcia and also Santana Ortiz. I don't want them there either. I just want to have me versus Daniel Garcia one-on-one. So Daniel Garcia was like, I got this. So he ended up making his way through security as security was holding off Jericho and the rest of his Appreciation Society. So that was that. And then we had Lexi Nair. As Rampage came back from the commercial, Lexi Nair ended up catching up with Hook. And Danhausen was there. Danhausen was crushing a bag of Lay's potato chips. And Hook ended up walking up to Danhausen. And Hook finally spoke. Hook was like, you wanted my attention? You got it now. So finally, they make Hook say a few words. And that was that. So we're going to begin this match soon with Hook and Danhausen. But from the looks of it, Hook is going to beat Danhausen. Maybe wrong on that though, but that's what I predict. That's what looks like it's shaping up to be. And then we had a squash match. Lance Archer took on Serpentico. Lance Archer is set to face Wardlow this Wednesday on Dynamite. And Shawn Spears was on commentary for this match. And as Lance Archer ended up making his way down, Serpentico stupidly tried to dive and take out Lance Archer, but Archer didn't budge. So Archer ended up crushing Serpentico in the corner, ended up bringing him out with the blackout. He hit the blackout on Serpentico. And there you go. Lance Archer end up defeating Serpentico. Squash match. Very quick. So post-match, Lance Archer ended up delivering a few choke slams to Serpentico. So there you go. So then we had Eddie Kingston versus Daniel Garcia. Jericho Appreciation Society banned from ringside. Santana Ortiz also banned, according to Kingston, from the promo that he delivered on Dynamite. And this was a good match. Very entertaining match from Kingston and Daniel Garcia. Kingston started off the match. He ended up going right at Daniel Garcia. Started landing some strikes at him. Kingston chopped Garcia into the corner and charged in with a running boot strike. Garcia ended up rolling to the outside. Kingston ended up following him out. Kingston ended up landing some chops on Daniel Garcia against the barricade. To which, after that, Kingston ended up sending Garcia into the ring steps. Daniel Garcia ended up catching Kingston and pulled him into the ring steps. They went back into the ring, and Daniel Garcia maintained control of the match as he started grounding Eddie Kingston. Daniel Garcia ended up hitting some knees to Kingston's ribs while he was down. Daniel Garcia delivered a kick to the back of Kingston's head, but that fired Kingston up, and he reversed it into a kick to the back of Daniel Garcia's head. So Daniel Garcia delivered some more knees to Kingston's midsection. Kingston got back up to his feet, and they started trading strikes at each other. Garcia backed Kingston into the corner, hit some forearms and some punches. He then ended up biting Eddie Kingston. Kingston then turned that around, started biting Daniel Garcia on his head, to which, before Daniel Garcia ended up biting Eddie Kingston on, his head, on Kingston's head. So Kingston ended up rolling outside, and Garcia ended up following him. Daniel Garcia ended up shoving Kingston into the ring post as Rampage went to commercial. So as Rampage came back from the commercial, both Daniel Garcia and Kingston were trading chops in the middle of the ring. Daniel Garcia ended up hitting a chop that staggered Kingston into the corner. Kingston ended up coming back with his own chop, and Daniel Garcia ended up delivering some uppercuts, and he locked in an abdominal stretch on Eddie Kingston. And Daniel Garcia ended up hitting a German suplex to Eddie Kingston, and he went for the cover, to which Kingston kicked out too. So Daniel Garcia ended up stomping on Eddie Kingston down in the corner. He charged into a boot by Kingston, and Kingston ended up following it up with a knee to the back of Daniel Garcia's neck from the second rope. So at the end of the match, Daniel Garcia ended up blocking a spinning back fist by Eddie Kingston. He ended up grabbing Kingston's leg. Kingston ended up hitting a backdrop driver and a spinning back fist to Daniel Garcia, and Eddie Kingston ended up going for the cover. There you go. Eddie Kingston ended up winning the match. Post-match, Kingston took off his belt, and he doesn't hit Daniel Garcia with the belt. He was just whipping the belt on the canvas, and he got on the mic and he ended up telling Chris Jericho, "I'm saving this whipping for you." So that was what Kingston had to say. But overall, this was a enjoyable, good match by Kingston and Daniel Garcia. Both guys were very good here. And then we went backstage, and Tony Schiavone was with Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland. Keith Lee ended up saying to Tony Schiavone that he looked up to Taz, but he tarnished their match last week when they were in New Orleans. So Swerve Strickland ended up saying that Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs won a battle, but the war is far from over. So Keith Lee, Swerve Strickland, they're not done with Hobbs and Ricky Starks. So he went to the commentary table, and Ricky Starks ended up saying that Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland don't want a war with him and Powerhouse Hobbs. So Ricky Starks ended up saying that. And then Tony Schiavone was backstage with Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Jamie Hayter, and Toni Storm. And these are all the women that are in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. Toni Storm ended up saying that she wants to know if Baker has ever left Pittsburgh and knows anything about her. So Toni Storm ended up saying that she'll see Jamie Hayter in the first round of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. And maybe she'll see Britt Baker later if she advances in the tournament. To which she will. So we had that. And then on commentary, they went over what we're going to see this Wednesday on Dynamite. We're going to see Serena Deeb versus Hikaru Shida. It's going to be a Philly street fight because they're going to be in Philadelphia Wednesday for Dynamite. So that's going to be a good match there with Serena Deeb and Hikaru Shida, that street fight. Looking forward to it. We're going to have another qualifying match in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, where it's going to be Dax Hardwood versus Cash Wheeler. So FTR is going to be going at it one-on-one, Hardwood and Wheeler. The ladder match is going to take place for the TNT Championship. Sammy Guevara versus Scorpio Sky, which I actually made a mistake in my Dynamite review earlier. I thought that they were going to do Sammy Guevara versus Scorpio Sky versus Ethan Page, and made a mistake on that. It's going to be Sammy Guevara versus Scorpio Sky for the TNT Championship in the ladder match. And then we're going to get the 10-man tag team match. Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly, and the Young Bucks versus Dante Martin, the Varsity Blondes, Lee Johnson, and Brock Anderson. And we're going to get Lance Archer versus Wardlow. So those are the matches that we're going to see this Wednesday on Dynamite. Shaping up to be another good edition of Dynamite for Wednesday. Main event. Jade Cargill versus Marina Shafir. TBS Championship on the line. Before the match, Mark Henry was chatting with Jade Cargill, Mark Sterling, and Marina Shafir. And then, of course, we had Kiera Hogan and Red Velvet, who are present in Jade Cargill's baddie section. And the match was just very meh, in my opinion. Last week, Marina Shafir debuted on Dynamite, and she ended up taking on Sky Blue, which that was a terrible match. That was absolutely awful. And the crowd was put into a coma last week. They did not even give one single shit about that match. And pretty much Jade Cargill was carrying Marina Shafir through the match. So we had a stare down take place between Cargill and Shafir. Cargill ended up using her quickness to avoid Shafir's strike, and Shafir ended up getting onto Jade Cargill's back. Marina Shafir ended up charging into a fallaway slam by Cargill. Cargill ended up clotheslining Shafir over the top rope out to the floor. She ended up slamming Shafir into the barricade right in front of Red Velvet and Kiera Hogan, her baddie section, to which Red Velvet ended up getting a bunch of shots in on Shafir because Mark Sterling ended up distracting Aubrey Edwards, who was the referee of the match. And they were just throwing popcorn at Marina Shafir, both Kiera Hogan and Red Velvet. So both Cargill and Shafir ended up going back into the ring. Cargill was stomping on Shafir. Cargill delivered a crossover taunt and a diving back elbow onto Shafir in the corner. Cargill ended up pulling her out, and she ended up going for the cover. and Shafir end up kicking out at 2. So Cargill ended up bringing Shafir all the way over into a power slam, and she went for the cover again, and Shafir ended up kicking out at 2. So as Rampage came back from the commercial, Cargill was still working on Marina Shafir. Shafir ended up escaping with a judo throw to Cargill. She ended up going after Cargill's leg and took her down. She ended up maneuvering into a knee bar to Cargill in the center of the ring. Cargill ended up finding her way to the ropes and broke up the knee bar. Shafir ended up rolling out to the floor and ended up wrapping Cargill's knee around the ring post. Mark Sterling ended up getting too close, and Marina Shafir ended up taking down Mark Sterling. Shafir ended up going back to Cargill, ended up kicking out her leg. And, of course, Kiera Hogan and Red Velvet then distracting Shafir again. And Cargill ended up hitting a pump kick to Shafir. Cargill hoisted up Marina Shafir and chokeslammed her onto the timekeeper's table. So Cargill lifted Shafir back into the ring. Cargill posed with Kiera Hogan and Red Velvet, her baddie section, before Cargill got back into the ring. So Cargill ended up repeatedly booting Shafir in the face, and Cargill hoisted up Shafir and ended up hitting Jaded on Marina Shafir to get the win. So Jade Cargill ended up winning the match and retains the TBS Championship. And now Cargill is 30-0. 30 wins, 0 losses. So Jade Cargill still keeping her undefeated streak alive and going. And it was on the big screen, the 30-0 for Jade Cargill, and dollar bills end up falling as Cargill end up celebrating in the ring. And that was how Rampage went off the air. Overall, very meh match here. Just Jade Cargill just carrying Marina Shafir through the match. It was an easy win for Jade Cargill to win the match and retain the title. So I don't know why that they gave Marina Shafir an opportunity to face Jade Cargill for the TBS Championship when Shafir did nothing. She just made her in-ring debut last week on Dynamite against Sky Blue. And that was a terrible match. And then after that match, now this week on Rampage, she gets a title shot? That didn't make any sense whatsoever. But overall, Rampage was a decent show. Much better than Smackdown. But anyways, that's it for my review of Smackdown and AEW Rampage. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Be sure to check out my Dynamite review if you guys haven't seen it, which I uploaded earlier today. So until next video, I'll see you all later.